Good evening to one and all present here at the webinar organized by School of Business, Oro University, Surat, on the theme, How to Manage Your Personal Finance During COVID-19. I take this opportunity to welcome today the panelists on the webinar, our speakers, Mr. Amar Vora and Mr. Yuvraj Solanki, Dean Oro University, Professor Rohit Singh, HOD School of Business, Dr. Monica Suri, and all the attendees of the webinar. During these challenging times, we are all facing a crisis we have never experienced before. We are all in uncharted territory, trying to find an island of hope. All economic activity has come to a standstill, and our personal finances have gone for a toss. Consumption expenses are continuing, EMIs are to be paid at the end of the month, SIPs and insurance premiums are to be honored, and all of these are to be met with stagnating incomes. Even gains from our past investments have taken a nosedive. In such times of an economic pandemonium, we all need to balance our personal finances with responsibility. This calls for experts' advice, and hence we have before us two experts today from this field, Mr. Amar Vora and Mr. Yuvraj Solanki. I would like to give a brief introduction of our speakers for the day. Our first speaker is Mr. Amar Vora, Associate Vice President, Motilal Oswal Financial Services Limited, Mumbai. He is in the field of equity advisory since more than 15 years and heads the team of equity advisors for the Gujarat region at Motilal Oswal. He is also the team leader for franchisee servicing. By qualification, he is a certified financial planner and a postgraduate in finance. Our second speaker for the day is Mr. Yuvraj Solanki, CEO and Managing Partner at Magneto Brokers LLP. With 8 years of experience in the BFSI space, he manages an AUM of 75 crore rupees. He pursued his master's in finance from Nirma University, Ahmedabad, and has a keen interest in interacting with the young Turks on topics related to finance. Sir, I heartily welcome you both at the webinar organized by School of Business, Oro University, Surat.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
I now request the Head of Department, School of Business, Oro University, Dr. Monica Suri, to give her opening remarks and a brief introduction about the university. Over to you, Monica, ma'am.
So I'm thankful to Dr. Rohini for inviting our expert speakers today. I'm here to invite you to introduce you to Oro University. Oro University is established under Gujarat State Private Universities Act 2009 and approved under Section 2F and 22C of UGC Act 1956. It is founded by Rama family, and the university is inspired by the vision and teachings of Sri Aurobindo and Divine Mother. Presently, we are having 7 schools in various domains of knowledge, starting from hospitality, management, IT, law, information technology, and then we have journalism and mass communication, liberal arts, School of Design, School of Fashion Technology, and from this academic year, we are also commencing a new School of Sciences. Along with this, we have established integral centers like Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center, as the university philosophy and vision is aligned to integral transformation of students, which actually talks about the holistic development of the students in physical, mental, vital, and spiritual domains of knowledge. Along with this, university has international and national presence in collaboration with various universities across the world and in India. And we also have a good competency in terms of our linkages with the industry. We're in industry bodies like Chamber of Commerce, Confederation of Indian Industry, Gift City, and many more are collaborated with us for the internship and placement activities of our students. So this was brief about the university, our Oro University. Now, when it comes to the topic, I was just thinking when I saw the topic which my dear colleague has defined for us today, I was thinking that she's too optimistic to remind us about our personal financial management and plannings at this COVID-19 time when we all are short of funds. So I thought that she's too optimistic to remind us or to motivate us. Look, don't worry about the funds; it will come in future. But you need to be a little proactive, to make the money management properly. So I think I'll not take any more time, and I'll hand over the session back to Dr. Rohini, because I'm keen to learn from the speakers present over here, so that once the finance will come to me, then I should be proactively handling my finance properly. So it's over to you, Dr. Rohini. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging words. And now, without taking much time, we begin with our webinar with the experts. Before we begin, I would just like to make a note that the attendees can send the questions through the chat box, and these questions will be addressed by the experts at the end of the presentation. With this, I now request Mr. Vora and Mr. Solanki to take over the session on the theme, how to manage our personal finances during COVID-19. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Right, I'll just share the screen. Is it there? Right. Is it fine? Is it visible?
It is about to read.
Yes, visible.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, good afternoon all. I hope everyone is fine. This crisis and this pandemic has taught us a lot of things. And I guess we will take a lot of learnings out of the whole experience which we have. Right. And I, being the finance guy, I always tried and analyzed that what will be the impact on our personal finances, right? We being into retail finances and being into individual space. So what we thought was, while this whole pandemic started, how will it impact and how it is going to impact the whole ecosystem of individuals investing into various sectors, various assets. What we found out always is personal finance is very much closely related to behavioral finance, and it is and this whole behavior of individuals cumulatively affect the economy and the markets at large. So why we are covering this topic and this session is important, because we together are putting an impact on the economy. Today it is a cumulative impact on the economy or on the markets that it is down and it's not doing well. So what happens here and how it happens, this is the whole, I hope I have made a whole brief about it, and I hope you'll enjoy the session. Let's start with the first thing. So what happens here is we panic. Whenever we see and hear kind of things that are happening around us. When the first thing we heard in Wuhan, and there were YouTube videos and there were videos on Facebook around everyone. So we were all into panic. We were selling our long-term investments. We were selling everything. What we thought we want to be in cash. Okay, the whole pandemic is kind of, and we had many movies and many example of movies coming around. So people saw those things and saw those scenarios which would never happen or which never happened. And in that expectation of that uncertainty, people started switching their investments. People started going for low-rated kind of returns. Why? Because it was all panic. Only panic led to people taking hasty and wrong decisions, and this panic led to crisis. So crisis had never been that we were in crisis. We came into crisis because of the panic. So then after this, after the whole thing happened, the crisis happened and people were at home, they were locked down, and we had our Honorable Prime Minister giving speeches for asking people not to panic, not to hold up their stocks for grocery and all those things. What we did is we just kept on worrying about things which never happened. We worried about unknown things to happen to us. end of day, after this crisis will be over, I hope the crisis will be over soon, what we will do is we will blame our fate when it comes to personal finance. We will blame that, okay, it was not in my fate that I would make more money. It was in fate of someone else. It was in fate of some other person who was making money. Just to give you how you should not panic, you very well know in the current scenario there is someone who's making a lot of money in the whole market. You hear a guy who's into data, who's into telecom, and I cannot name him, but he's making huge amount of money. He's not in panic. He's doing deals. He's selling stakes to Facebook or to other holders. His stock prices have doubled. So what we have to learn from these leaders is they don't panic in situations. They analyze those situations, they understand those situations, and then they plan it for themselves. Rather, people would have thought that, okay, this is not the right time to go for deals. I could have stopped all my deals. I could have put a halt on all my deals. But that company, that guy kept coming one after the another. There were some other deals being announced in that company. Why? Because things were analyzed properly. So when it comes to personal finance, what we need to do is, whenever we face situations like this, we need to analyze our financial portfolio and not the markets and not others' markets. We don't have to go by hearsay, like the friend is saying, okay, this will happen, that will happen. Forget everyone and just hear to your own self, look at your own portfolio. Now, how do we come out of panic? Like right now, ma'am said that, okay, I also want to take some points out. So this is the first point, and I'll be very practical. I'll not give a theoretical advice. I'll be very practical. It's having an emergency fund. No one on this, I guess, planet might have planned for the emergency fund, which I'm talking about. What we do is we keep on investing. We keep on investing all our money to real estate, to stocks, to equities, to gold. We do not have an appropriate and legitimate allocated amount of money which is for emergency, which is for contingency. We are in pain. We are in deep pain. An emergency fund is solution to this deep pain. Having an emergency fund, many people come to me, they say, Yuvraj bhai, I really have an emergency fund. I kept this money in my locker and this was there. And then what happened was market fell down. So I invested in the market. So now I don't have an emergency fund. Emergency fund is purely to cover your expenses and commitments at least for 12 months. This fund is not to be utilized for the opportunities in the market or in gold or in real estate. It is not to utilize opportunities. It is just to cover up your expenses and commitments and EMIs. Having an emergency fund is the foundation to creation of wealth and a stress-free life. I saw many people investing their emergency fund into some bonds or into some credit risk category kind of funds, right? And now they are suffering in that also. They said, okay, we invested in safe bets. We had very safe bets, but why are we losing out of it? Never ever expect returns out of your emergency fund. Emergency fund is not for returns. That fund is just for a rainy day. It is just to be used when you face such kind of crisis, so that you can relax and enjoy with your family in these times. If having an emergency fund, like everyone would be having an emergency fund, I suppose, this is a wild guess, I suppose that markets would not have crashed. This all happened because no one has an emergency fund. Even companies don't have it. At times, many companies, they are in deep debt. So why will they create emergency fund? So everyone needs to have an emergency fund. Many times people make mistakes. What they do is they use this emergency fund to pay their loans. It is not to pay your loans. It is to pay your EMIs in times when you don't make income. So this is one of the biggest founding stone in our personal finance, and this is one of the biggest takeaway, I would say, to avoid such crisis and avoid such pandemics. It's not pandemic, it is pandemics, right? Another point what I would cover is insurance. Many people, like I just had a webinar yesterday, and what we found out is India is so much underinsured, that if at all we had this pandemic and we had this crisis, go for a longer time. If the government never had a lockdown, and if healthcare was to be given a chance to service the mankind or service the people of India, there were 90% people or 80% people who were not covered in insurance, and government didn't have the funds. So what we see is, who will help you in such crisis? There is no neighbor, there is no uncle, there is no cousin who will come and pay your coronavirus bills. I heard, and I have faced one of our own client in Mumbai. He was asymptomatic for corona. He was admitted in SL Raheja. He had to pay a bill. Luckily, he was insured. He had a medical insurance which helped him pay off the bills. It's a myth that people say that insurance companies are not paying for coronavirus claims. They are paying it. They do pay for such crisis. When it is pandemic, they do pay for it. And people, what they think is, why should I take an insurance? And health insurance is an expense, which is just a money gone away from my pocket, and that's of no use. Such crises have taught many people to have insurance, have medical insurance. It is a fixed cost to your future probable expense, medical expense, right? And as well as having a medical insurance, if you are building a portfolio, you are building a portfolio for your own self and not for a company or anyone else. So what you should have is, you should insure the person whose portfolio we are building. So we should also have an appropriate term plan. If the person if the bread earner is not there, if the person who's bringing money home and the whole finances home is not there, who will bring it? So it is me who is an asset for my family and who will bring in the money. So I have to get my own self insured to protect the whole future of my family. So again there is a myth. What people do is, if I ask them if you have an insurance, they don't say I have an insurance. They say I have an LIC, I have a Max, I have a whatever name of the company you say, but they don't take pure term plans. No one. There are only 4.3% people in India who have pure term plans. Again, we don't want to let our money go away. We don't want to pay money just for the sake of paying it. And if it doesn't happen, then the money goes by. I don't want such kind of plans. Term plan is one of the best suggestion anyone would give you. That is one of the best thing to happen to you and your family, if at all it happens. So insurance is another foundation stone, right? What happened in crisis? There were many other claims also. Like, it was not necessary that everyone faced corona in these 3 months. People were also having other issues. They were facing cough, fever, cold. They were also having malaria. Some were also having other surgical issues. Such crisis, income was not there. No one was earning money. There was lack of proper liquidity in assets. Like, you were not able to sell your shares because the market is falling. There was issues regarding liquidity in the debt market. In such crisis, if you had a medical insurance, or you would have taken some health or medical insurance, such crisis, this would have come to you as a boon. Instead of selling your portfolios in panic, instead of selling your portfolios at lower valuations, this kind of insurance will always be there to help you. So this is another stone, this is another foundation towards your financial planning, right? What happened now, the next topic I'm coming to is a very interesting one. What happened is, as the lockdown started and the 21-day period started, people started demanding for deferment in payments. They wanted to defer their EMIs, and there was many messages on WhatsApp roaming around that why the government is not helping the MSME, that is the medium and small scale enterprise. The entrepreneurs are suffering. They have to pay their EMIs. How will we pay our salaries when we can't pay our EMIs? So government came up with an option of deferment. You can defer your EMIs. You can extend them. And ultimately what happened is this. Deferment again will lead to financial distress. You have deferred your EMI, but you have not deferred your commitment. Deferring an EMI doesn't mean that these 3 months will be waived off. It's not waiving off your EMIs. What government or what banks have done is they have deferred it with an interest cost to it. So there is an interest cost on this deferment, which will lead to an extra EMI charge to you. Suppose you have an EMI of 48 months, right? And if you have deferred this EMI for 3 months with a bank. So what we calculated on a gross basis is that individual will pay an extra EMI. So his EMI will not be 48, it will be 49, counting the interest cost. Government has said if you defer an EMI, we don't have any issues. Banks have said we don't have any issues. But the period you will defer it for, we will charge an interest on it. So it is again causing a financial distress. Things are not going to come back to normal so easily that after 3 months you will again start paying your EMIs. You are just extending your pain. You're just going through a pain and you're taking an injection to extend it. Nothing else is happening. Many people have deferred their SIPs, a very important topic for me as being in that business. So what happened is the markets were falling, the markets were going for a toss, and people were calling up and saying, okay, we want to stop our SIPs, we don't have income, we are not able to sustain. And this was the right time to purchase funds, to purchase units, to purchase stocks. And at the right time, people were not able to enter, just because they didn't have any emergency or contingency fund to invest into or to help make them fulfill their commitments. And what will happen is when you defer your SIP, again these people will have an opportunity loss. They will lose a big opportunity of purchasing at lower price. SIPs work on a rupee cost averaging model, right? So you are averaging out the whole market for a period. And what you are doing is when you actually get a chance to average out, you are stopping your SIPs, you are deferring your SIPs. Might be possible you will not again start your SIPs. Another main point is insurance. Many people might be having their, it was March, so that's a financial year end. So many people might be having their insurance installments due at this point of time. And they said, okay, we will not be paying it. If it is a life insurance policy, you will again be charged a penalty on it. So again, you are increasing your pain, right? If it is talk about your mediclaims or talk about your term plans, what you're going to do is you're going to lose the whole waiting period or the whole benefit you have carried over for years due to delayed payment in your mediclaim or in your term plans. In fact, many policies might lapse and you'll have to again restart it at a higher premium. So this is again a big pain. Just 3 months of lockdown or just a crisis for 6 months in the economy is giving you is putting a big hole into your whole personal finance. So that is again, it's all cruelty to your own self. You're giving pain to your own self by doing this. And what happened during these times is people were mitigating between investing into different areas rather than making their EMI payments. Like many people, what they did is instead of paying their EMIs, they said, okay, we'll not pay our EMIs, we'll come and pay this SIP, we'll pay this LIC premiums, we'll pay this Medicare policies. That's also wrong. Deferring one payment and making another is again putting you into a big mess. You're not solving out things, you're just jumbling and you're just entangling into a big mess, right? Now, a biggest thing, and I guess everyone will be aware of, we all are prey of this. It's the herd mentality. Herd mentality, I got a very good cartoon picture on it. So I just put it up in my PPT. Like this is a beautiful thing, everyone, it's a rat race, as we say. And rat race is like, we don't know what is ahead. We don't know what the road ahead is. Where are we falling in a pit or we are climbing a mountain? And everyone is behind another person. What happens is recently there was some big news in crude. There was some big movement in crude. So you started all of a sudden started trading in crude. Your financial plan and your investment portfolio started switching towards crude oil, though you are not an Arab or you don't have a refinery. Otherwise, other way around, before crude, people were so much bullish on gold. So their whole portfolio and whole sentiment was switching towards gold, right? Before that, it was Bitcoin. I'm not criticizing any asset class. I'm just saying that people start concentrating onto a particular asset class when that asset class starts giving a return. So what happens is ultimately you become the buyer of a higher value asset. You purchase gold at 40,000 expecting it goes at 60,000 or 70,000, right? And what you have done is, the guy who purchased gold at 30,000 is selling you at 40,000. So you become a customer. So you yourself become the whole host of person accepting things at higher inflation value, right? Instead of that, instead of looking at your friend becoming a millionaire, why don't we just cut all this noise, all this clutter, and focus onto our own portfolio, right? So that is how we should actually have a portfolio approach. Having a portfolio approach in personal finance, what will it help? How will it help us? It will avoid this herd mentality. Many people fall prey to herd mentality because they don't know what is their long-term goal. They don't know what they want in future. They don't know what is their financial goal. In fact, I don't know why this is a culture in India that speaking about our financial dream, that is, I want to become this X crore, or this money, I want to have this balance. After this many years, I want to have a foreign trip. Why is this a crime in our society? I don't understand that. There must be something which we need to introspect into ourselves. But you should have a long-term goal. You should have a short-term goal. You should be aware of your requirements and your expenses in the short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and prepare a portfolio onto it. I'm not saying don't go into crude, don't go into gold, don't go into equities. Everything is good, but it is good in a proportion. A well-known example, which many times I hear it, making a portfolio is like making tea. If I add one spoon of sugar, 1 spoon of milk, 1 spoon of water, and 1 spoon of tea, and make a tea and give it to you, you won't like it. While making a tea, we need 1 spoon of tea, 1 spoon or a half a spoon of sugar, 1 cup of milk, half a cup of water. So there are weightages to your portfolio. Like while you make a tea, you have weightages. If you give equal weights to everything, you end up making poison out of it. So you are just making poison out of your portfolio, while you do such kind of herd mentality thing into your portfolio. Instead, what you should do, allocate asset. Like if there is a mix, you have equities, or you don't name it equities, name it risk. I have a portfolio of risk. I have a portfolio of fixed income. I have a portfolio of gold. I have a portfolio of real estate. This combined makes my complete portfolio. And whenever there is a variation, I just keep glitching. I just keep doing some tweaks into it. For example, recently, like suppose I had an asset allocation of 70-30% in my portfolio. 70% was equities and 30% was debt, right? What happened was markets were 12,000 and then they came down to somewhere around 7,800, 8,000. So this is about Nifty. So my portfolio was down by 20%, my equity portfolio. So the 70% allocation which I had given in my portfolio to equities was down to around 68%. Or let's say it was down to around 58%. So now my portfolio allocation had changed due to the markets. So what I did was I just switched some money out of my debt and switched it to equities, and there I was done. My bottom fishing was done. Like if you wish to purchase at lower prices, my bottom fishing was done, right? My allocation was done, and there was no noise in my portfolio. There was no impact of all the noise in my portfolio. The government was doing whatever the markets were doing, whatever the fund managers were doing, whatever Rakesh Jhunjhunwala was doing, whatever he was purchasing, nothing impacted me, right? Many times there are news flashes that, okay, he purchased this, he purchased that, and you start purchasing those stocks. Nothing impacted that. I had my portfolio built, constructed very well in advance, and I just changed my allocation, right? So what you have to do is either you consult someone, or either you are yourself very much pro, then you can yourself do it. But you should have a portfolio approach. Without having a portfolio approach, be it real estate, be it gold, everything should come under your portfolio approach. Unless you don't have a portfolio approach, there is no way to creating wealth. Asset allocation is always the key to creating wealth, and whatever stress is coming is always due to issues in asset allocation. Might be possible many must have given higher asset allocation towards equity or mutual funds. That's why they are suffering through pains. Might be possible many must have given higher asset allocation to their business. Like we hear it in Surat, many people, they always invest into business. Whatever happens, whatever comes out of business, we again put it into our business. That's always way too wrong. That's way too wrong, and that's taking you towards a different side. Now, what we learned, like we had a discussion earlier with Monica ma'am, and this is a point which you mentioned, and I already had it in my PPT. Frugality. We've learned a lot of frugality during COVID-19. If we keep up with this, there is no stress to life. I myself have seen that my monthly expenses have gone down by 40-45%. Like I used to simply for simple bit of grocery, I used to go out in a 4-wheeler and get those groceries, which was not necessary. I can even call that guy and ask him to send those grocery at my place. During COVID-19, what we do is we make a list for 4-5 days. After making a list, we go out. If it was not Corona, what we do is for even a coffee or a milk powder, we go every time. We repeatedly keep going there, right? What we have learned in this times is theaters are not at all necessary. I hope there is no theater guy in this session. Theaters are not necessary, I guess. Anyone being to theater, do tell me. I would join him. So watching a movie in theater or watching it on Netflix and Amazon, it's as good as that. In fact, you can enjoy with your family in at home, right? Restaurants, oh man, restaurants are, I don't know how can I say this in Surat, but restaurants are not necessary. People have made good food at home. Dalgona and all those new kind of coffees have come up during these times. I never knew there was some coffee called Dalgona. So cooking at home, making food at home. I would actually suggest men at home. Ever you've made food at home? Have you ever seen family being so happy and they're enjoying and they're relishing this food in restaurant? You spend the same amount in fact, you spend 10x money in restaurant and you take your children to that restaurant and you just come there. You just come back home and you sleep. But while you cook food, the whole thing, the whole enjoyment starts when you start cooking food at home. Family is with you. They say, okay, my husband is cooking, my boy is cooking food, he's making some cake or something else. So that is itself an entertainment. That is taking you away from the stress of life, stress of Facebook and targets and all those things. And biggest part, gym. I would suggest, I also have done a different webinar on especially club memberships. If you are not attending that gym or that club more than 30%, if your attendance is less than 30%, I would suggest you sell off that club membership or that gym membership, let it go. If 30%, if in a year, in 365 days, you're not at least going for 3 months to that gym or to that club, what is the use of having it? You can always pay for a 5-star hotel at the same cost, pay for a good trip to Goa or to some other good places, Udaipur or anywhere else, right? From the same membership cost. Online fitness is always there. It always used to be there, but we never felt it so good. We never felt, okay, we always wanted someone to be there in front of us, training us. Whereas we have an option. New cars. Many people were about to purchase cars before 22nd of March, right? And they have delayed their decision and they have delayed it for good. Many people have bought it and their car is just sitting in the garage. It's of no use. What we understood in these times is, like, we carried out a survey on Facebook. There was a page in there, we carried out a survey. We asked many people during this coronavirus times that would you prefer going through an Ola, Uber and Zoom car, or you prefer having your own car? 90% people preferred having their own car to travel. In the next survey, what we did is we asked them that if given the cost, we gave them a cost of per kilometer. Like if you purchase a car, there is a per kilometer cost calculated by having the purchase value of your car, add service cost, add fuel cost, and then you get a per kilometer cost. Then we gave them a per kilometer cost that if you have your own car, the per kilometer cost is 18 rupees, given the insurance and all those things. And driving through an Ola or Uber is around 7 or 10 rupees, I guess. Would you prefer owning a car? The answer was rewards. There were 80% people who were saying, okay, it's better to go through Ola and Uber. You already have a paid driver. You add a cost of driver, that's again very high. So this is another thing. The last point, I guess we are already going through that, large gatherings to online. Many marriages, many birthday parties have happened on Google Duo and Zoom. So it's very much possible, and we are very happy being online and being wishing birthdays online. It's not every time necessary to gather and just spend your extra bucks there. What happens is, I being a financial advisor or a planner, what we actually see is we spend n number of money and we waste that money on these gatherings. We just waste that money in just showing off people that okay, we are wealthy. What's the need? If you're wealthy, you're happy. Why does happiness come by showing off your wealth? You should be happy because you're wealthy. So this thought is very much necessary. This thought is like, if you want to be wealthy, you have to be happy in your own self, and you don't have to be happy by showing it off. So that is very important. Large gatherings are just occurrence of this mentality or this thought process of people that okay, if we don't have a large wedding, a large birthday party, people will think I've lost all my money, I don't have a good amount of wealth. It's not necessary. If you enjoy having a holiday in some foreign, in some good location, do that. That will add value to your own self. So instead of spending on food for other people, rather you go and donate to some place where people get good food, instead of feeding those people who already have a lot of money to feed themselves, right? So frugality is a big lesson to be learned. And talking about the whole personal finance area, without frugality, without planning for your emergencies, you cannot plan your portfolios. You will not be able to do anything with your portfolio till when you are not frugal about your own expenses, right? So this is it from my side. I hope I've covered most of it, and I would like Amar to open up and brief up people regarding the markets. He is very well versed with the markets, so he'll give the outlook for the market. Thank you. Amar.
Yeah, thanks, Yuvraj. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, so basically I do not have any PPT to share with, but then I'll be talking a lot more on a market outlook. Basically, being an equity guy and associated with Motilal Oswal since a long time, the general question which comes to me is what is the outlook for the market, right? So just to sum up with what Yuvraj told and what discussion we had just prior to this session, like we have talked so much about Yuvraj, you have talked about insurance, you have talked about continuity with the SIP and all. Cutting on expense, unwanted expense, I suppose is the biggest thing that I will suggest in this Corona time. As far as market is concerned, this Corona thing is a global challenge. It's not only related to India or Indian market. It's a global challenge, and I suppose even a government or scientists or even policymakers actually are not able to yet fully understand the magnitude. So we do not know exactly. So there might be question like what is how long this shutdown can go. I really do not have answer. I don't think even anybody here will be having any answer on that. And secondly, what are the exactly effects of this shutdown? Like how this is going to, like, will this shutdown actually help in containing this disease? That to some extent we can believe that it is helping, but then even that is also up to what magnitude we don't know, like number of cases which have increased of late. So I think these two questions are there in everybody's mind, and if we relate this to market, definitely these are the times where market are challenging. Economically, if you ask me what are the impact on our economy, so I can say approximately 75% of economy is shut down today. Okay, you may argue a lot of rural places, villages are open and there are actually some activities going on. but the major urban areas where the major economic activities are taking place, they are under shutdown mode. I have gone through one presentation in which I came to know 35,000 crore per day loss is a loss of output. That is a magnitude of loss which we are facing in this lockdown period, and that's definitely going to impact our GDP. Indian GDP, earlier we like pre-corona, we used to think around 5.9, 5.8% of GDP. So right now I can say like maybe flat or maybe a GDP can contract. So I don't know where market will go or where the economy will go and how long this corona things will go. It has impacted government, like tax revenue has fallen, tax numbers are because there are no economic activity, so definitely tax number are going down, and government has to spend on stimulus, has to spend on lot of other activity to keep country running. So expenditures are going on, maybe the stimulus and other expenses, and tax numbers are coming down. So this again is going to increase fiscal deficit, which again create a risk of downgrade, and we are just one notch ahead of getting downgrade to junk. So if that happens, there will be again a big sell-off in the market, and nobody will like to lend to us. But I think these are the negative things, but then there are a lot of positive things also. And if we consider crude prices, so crude is the biggest positive thing in this scenario for India. Like we are the third largest importer of the crude, and every $1 fall in crude price will save $1.5 billion to India. So that is on a positive side. Second positive will be like you must have heard Europe, US saying that they want to deleverage, they want to de-risk a supply chain. Like people want to move out of China. There was a lot of dependency on China for supply. China was known as the world factory. So everything exported to US or Europe, majority things were made in China. So this corona has taught the world, like they even like the diversification we have in our portfolio. Same way there should be some diversification even in supply chain, and India, Vietnam and other Asian country are the top contender for this. And you must have heard in fact our government, I suppose Yogi ji from Uttar Pradesh has already approached, and many other states are approaching companies, and we are in talks with lot of top companies from US to shift their plants to in a phased manner out of China, and some of this will come to India, to Vietnam and other Asian countries. So these are the positive sides for India. Question mark thing is on labor front. Though these factories and everything will come, India right now, if you have heard, if you have seen on news, like many laborers are migrating back to their village. So even during this, before this session started, my question to ma'am was like, will this labor come back? And that is the biggest question. Even we are talking about the shutdown. Suppose say tomorrow the shutdown is open. Okay, factories are open, but then who will work in the factory? Will these migrants come back immediately? That is a question mark. So I can sum it up like immediate environment for market maybe like weak, but then if you ask me about a long term to medium term approach, definitely there are positive things from India for India. Markets, are they at a bottom level or not? I don't know. Market may correct by another 10%. I'm not sure, but one can be sure that market are currently just waiting for some breakthrough in medicines. Like already in US, Johnson and Johnson have started trial on human beings, and the day there is an announcement of medicine for this corona thing, I can make you make sure like markets will move. It will not wait for recovery to happen on balance sheet. It will not wait for recovery to happen in economy, but markets will start moving. The day we get any breakthroughs in medicines, the market will start going up from that day. So my understanding is, if you want to invest and if you want to start, these are the best times. See, you will never get good businesses at a time when everything is news flow are good, everything is good. At that time, valuations will be expensive. I know there are a lot of students, and so I don't want to get into numbers, but then I can tell you many large cap stocks are at 2016 valuations. So you are getting very good businesses, very good market leaders at a very good valuation. You get. They all have strong balance sheet, and when recovery will happen, when everything will be normal, these are the companies, these are the leaders who will first or who will lead towards this ultimate recovery. So my sense is you should not wait for market to bottom out. We do not know, as it's said in cricket, timing, like when we say Sachin Tendulkar, like he was a great batsman and the timing was everything for him. But I think we are all laymen, and even for me, this much time into market, predicting exact bottom is not a cup of tea for even I can say the greatest of the player in the market. So the longer you stay in the market, that is better. So do not wait for timing. These are the great businesses you are getting at like 2-3 years 2016 levels. So at a very fair valuation. And when things normalize, and I'm sure things will get normalized, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the line, things will get normalized, and these are the companies who will start leading to the recovery. Though our market have been hammered majorly because of FI sellings, but then how many countries have a better GDP growth rate than India? Very few. I think China, and then this money which they have taken out of India and other emerging economy, just because cash is king at this time. So they have taken the money, and I'm sure when things gets normalized, this money is going to come back to India, and this will lead to another rally in Indian markets. So the best strategy is to stay calm rather than to panic, as Yuvraj told. Staying calm and stay invested, have faith in Indian economy, have faith in overall things. If this corona thing will be a past, and economy will again get back to normal. So my suggestion will be, conserve your cash, keep cash. Cash is king at this time. Cut down your expenses, but that doesn't mean you should stop investing. You should postpone your EMIs. If possible, continue with your EMI, because as Yuvraj postponing your EMI is going to add to your cost. It's just postponing and not actually you're not getting any holidays, you're not getting any relaxation, you're just postponing. So do not stop your SIPs. Right now you are getting SIPs at lower NAVs, at a lower valuation, and so you will be getting more units. Just to come to just match with other developing countries, Indians have invested only 2% into equities. Yuvraj, I'll just this I have just googled it out, and overall as compared to this other developing nations, even if you consider Mexico, so Indians equity percentage is only 2%. If you even take mutual fund industry as a whole, mutual fund to GDP, India is at 12%, whereas Mexico is at 60%, and US is approximately around 100%. So India has to move ahead. India has to go ahead in this, and then this mutual fund, this SIP things are going to perform. So my conclusion is, markets for a near term, for a immediate term, may look some bleak because there are uncertainties. We don't know when these things will get over, but then certainly these things will be becoming past, and then economy will become positive and will bounce back, and at that time the investment made during this time will show you some returns. So I suppose I have made my point. So Yuvraj, anything to add?
Yeah, so that is it, Amar, from your side. I don't know. I should not be. I'm not the right guy to add more to your knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. But we have a question over here, ma'am. There is a question over here.
I'm
Yes.
not able to read it. If you can get.
I will read it out for you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. And now I think we move ahead to the question answer session. We have a question for Mr. Yuvraj Solanki by Dr. Meghna Dangi. She says that, as you mentioned, personal finance is synonymous with behavioral finance and financial discipline, wherein you mentioned about the herding bias. As you would agree, there are many other biases too, which originate from personality of the investor. In the time of pandemic, how, as an advisor, you incorporate this behavior into the asset allocation of your client?
Okay. So personality in what sense? Like I'm not sure. I had to ask another question to it. But personality means there are people who are very scared, and they are very risk averse. So when they actually they have to be they have to be vocal about it. They have to tell it to the advisor. There are many people. Herd mentality is actually what causes a person to forget his own nature. This is called herd mentality. An individual, when he comes to us, he comes with a leaflet or a paper to an advisor that, okay, this is what a friend gave it to me, and this thing has to be done. This fund is one of the best dividend paying fund. I need to invest in this fund. So that time an advisor has to realize, okay, that he has come with someone else's suggestion or with someone else's bias. So that time an advisor has to really take a lot of time and sit with the client or the investor and ask him questions regarding his risk averseness. Rather, what we do is we actually ask him, if your money goes out and it goes to zero, what would happen? And there are many questionnaires wherein risk averseness has been judged of a client. So yet it's a very tough thing for a person to do. But we actually ask some questions and we get to know from those certain questions that this guy is not into equities or is not into risk or is not into long-term kind of a thing. This is how we do it. I hope I've covered the whole thing.
Yes. Thank you, Yuvraj. There is one question that I would like to ask to Mr. Amar Vora, which is that, so you talked about equity markets, that it's the right time to invest because the valuations you're getting is of 2016. And looking forward, once the vaccine is found and everything is positive, the sentiments are positive, the way the markets will shoot up, you won't even get time to enter. So right now, if I want to invest, do you suggest large caps or do you suggest mid caps or small caps? That is what I would like to know.
Large cap, small cap, mid cap is purely depend on your risk appetite. Large cap are generally suggested to those people who do not want to take much risk. It's a defensive kind of approach where I can say if some pensioner come to me and ask me I want to invest into equities, I will always suggest him large cap. But suppose some young student is coming to me and asking me I want to take risk, I am ready to invest and I want to make big money, but I'm ready to take equally big risk also. So for him, a mid cap, small cap will be a better option because he has enough time in his life. Even if he misses this one or this decision goes wrong, he has enough time to recur it. But if suppose a pensioner, if he invests into small cap and things goes for toss, then it will be a big hurdle from because he is putting his life earning into it. So large caps are more on a defensive side, low risk, low return kind of you can say. Mid cap, small cap, high risk, high return. So equity is purely the more the risk you take, there is more.
I guess there's some network issue.
In addition, Dr. Meghna asked you because I'll give you my example. You can take me as a subject. I don't mind, right? So I'm never mentally prepared to buy the mutual funds. Though my colleagues, my peer groups, they motivated me a lot. They suggested many good financial advisors to me. So in context to the previous question related to personality, because if you're a financial advisor, a financial mentor, I think financial mentor sounds to be good and psychologically acceptable term. This is what I personally feel. There are many intangible aspects which I may not disclose to you, right? It's about going to a doctor and giving them a partial diagnosis of my problem, that I'm suffering from headache or whatever I can feel. But maybe I'm not giving the clear diagnosis of my personality, that how I'm feeling, what are my insecurities, what are my limitations, my personal or financial limitations, all these aspects, and what is my attitude to this particular market of, shares or mutual funds or whatever. So how do you do the diagnosis of intangible aspects when a person like me will come to you, and how will you convince? Because many of the people fail to convince me. I'll be very honest to you, right? So I'm a very tough student for them, and you tell me, how do you go for a fair diagnosis so that you can give a very wise suggestion to a person? Because many things they may disclose to you, many things they may not disclose to you. So I'm sure out of your vast experience now, you can go through the behavioral aspect of also the people who are entering to your office, and you can make out whether they're just entering for the sake of spending good time with you, or they are really there to make some investment and some wise advice from your end. So what do you say on this? Yeah.
I'll not give you a direct answer. I'll just tell you a story, and I guess everyone will be interested in hearing that. I'll tell you a story from Mahabharata. It's very famous these days, so I just deduced it from my clients and how I deal with my clients through the story. So while in Mahabharata, I hope everyone is fine with English, right? Because there are some words which I'll have to use it in Hindi. So what happened is in the story of Mahabharata, why did Mahabharata happen? It happened due to the game which they played. The Pandavas and Kauravas, they played Chaucer, I guess. And it was all due to that the whole thing happened, right? So who came to invite them? Ma'am, I'm asking you, you can unmute your audio. Do you know who came to invite Yudhishthir for this game?
Those other party opponents?
Yeah, but who from the Kauravas came to invite them? It was Vidur.
Actually?
It was Vidur who came to invite Yudhishthir for playing a game of Chaucer. That is somewhat like a roulette or something like that. With the Kauravas, and Yudhishthir being very fond of this game, so actually Shakuni and all those guys, they were aware that it was a trap. Vidur also knew that it was a trap, but when he came to invite them, Yudhishthir asked Vidur कि what we should do. अगर आप हमें बुलाने आए हो लेकिन आप हमारे बड़े हो तो आप क्या मानते हो? What do you think? Should we accept this invitation? What Vidur said, Vidur was very prudent in his advice. He gave a right advice. He said कि राज धर्म का पालन करना पड़ेगा. And Yudhishthir was again a very principle based guy. Well, he used to follow principles. So he was said that राज धर्म का पालन करना पड़ेगा. And Yudhishthir had 2 points, 2 cookies on his side. He was interested in the game, and he also had to follow the rules of his kingdom. So he accepted the invitation, right? After the whole thing, when they were in a problem, when Draupadi was in a problem in Hastinapur, and what happened? Whom did she call? She called Krishna, right? So you have a full-time advisor and you have a part-time advisor. This part-time advisor Vidur is always there in form of Google or in form of your friend or in form of your neighbor who comes and gives you an advice which is correct. But that Vidur is going to place you somewhere where again you fall in a problem and you call that full-time advisor. Please Krishna, come and help me. So it is on us first of all to avoid a part-time advisor and a full-time advisor. If you talk about doctors, these days people change doctors like they keep on changing doctors. So consulting and taking consultancy is a very tough thing. Even consulting someone is a tough thing. And you are very right, people do not disclose complete information to anyone these days. So there is no Krishna in these Kali times. So we have to search for someone. That advisor can be your own son, your own family member, your own sister, anyone. And talking about finding a right financial advisor in terms of the herd mentality and the bias. See, there are many advisors in the industry, in our industry, who are actually educated and who are actually having a formal education to advise. And there are many advisors in the industry who are some science or engineering graduate, and they come in just for the sake of doing business, and they just come for the sake of selling products. So you have to understand what your advisor is doing. Is he selling a product, or he's selling a concept? He's selling your whole the whole idea of portfolio to you. Everywhere, if you talk about, like Rohini ma'am asked about large caps, mid caps, small caps, I many times tell my customers, it is not investing into large cap or small cap. Even now, currently, those small caps are beaten down. There are people whom we advise that you should invest in small caps, because they are young, they are 23 years old, and they've got whole life to earn money. So they should take risk right now and not at the later part of the life. So it depends on your age, it depends on your earning, it depends on your earning forecast. There are many factors that your advisor will be able to advise you. So like rightly said, Amar Bhai is a CFP. So he has a formal education to advise people for making a financial plan. Right. I have done my education into this whole thing. I've done an RIA. So I am a registered investment advisor with SEBI. So these are all things which help you identify a good advisor. So advisor is more important.
Yeah.
And don't change your advisor. That's more important.
Yes. I hope that was answered, Monica ma'am.
Yeah, very effectively. And I don't know whether I'll make my mind to again go ahead with the mutual funds or not. Or maybe I need some more mentoring or counseling on this.
Sure, ma'am. We'll do that.
One more question that I have is, Mr. Modi has announced a lot of measures based on Atmanirbhar Bharat, which he had announced for 20 lakh crore rupees. So what do you think, what will be the effect of that fund and then the fund of funds of 50,000 crore rupees on the markets in India?
The question is for Amar Bhai?
Any of you can answer.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
So I've started in two devices, so even if one gets disconnected, I am audible. Okay, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is that Mr. Modi had announced a package under Atmanirbhar Bharat, and in that package also there is one provision which says about fund of funds for 50,000 crore rupees. So how will that affect the market, and when do you think that rotation of money will actually happen and will start showing results in the market?
See, the package which was announced yesterday includes a lot of guarantees for medium and small scale enterprises. There are a lot of guarantees. I can say almost 60% was in form of guarantees. So this is definitely going to help this small and medium entrepreneur, and it will definitely improve their, I can say, cash flow as of now. The problem is cash flow and giving them enough liquidity is fine, but what about the output? Still we are in the lockdown situation, still there is a loss of output. So problem is like I can say a lot of people who have a demand for the product, who want some support from government, who will need money from government, but they need their factory to start, and production should get start and get it supply side should start. I think as Modi has announced, this chief minister of states have enough power, and the orange and green zones will have some relaxation. So I think there will be some relaxation, and then economy in this green and orange zone we will see some economic activity, and then that is going to help slowly and gradually I can say, boost the economy once again on track. So these measures are important, but then again, production output, how much output will be there? I really don't know how much actually things will get open up and how much production will start. So just by giving a
So, Avi, you raised very important point in the beginning about that your personal wealth portfolio. So I was just thinking and recalling that I think it's the easiest way is to cut short on your luxury budgets, and pre-wedding shoots and everything. So I think it's important for us to introspect, to postpone our few luxury, plannings for another 2-3 years. I'm talking from the industry point of view as well as the personal point of view. I know there are some life events which are highly memorable for you and emotionally connected to you, and that's why you don't want to just do it in isolation. You want to celebrate it with a big social gathering and everything, because I've seen that few people have postponed the marriages, and just not because of that they don't want to get into a simple marriage, but yes, because the society and the mindset of all of us with due honor is like that it's give and take, because we were there, and that's why now they should also be the part of this gathering because of the demographic and the dynamics that we have created in socio-cultural system of our Indian economy. So I feel that these luxury budgets need to be postponed. What if I'll not buy BMW this year, or maybe 2 years ahead, or maybe another 5 years? It will not stop my life. It will not stop my earning. It will not stop my living. So I think you raised a very important point related to that. So what do you think? Like, I think let's cross a finger that nobody is keeping check or keeping track of these destination wedding budgets and pre-wedding shoots and all that. Otherwise, I think there'll be a big problem. I know it's a very personal event for each one of us. So what do you want to say on this? Like when it comes to luxury budgets and all, how do you suggest your clients about this particular suggestion? Because I think they need to spend wisely on all these things. So what do you say on this? Yeah.
So this is a nice question, ma'am. See, actually, my frugality is not being against luxury. There is a difference between frugality and spending, right? So what I am saying is, you have to be frugal. That's very true. It's necessary, but you don't have to avoid luxuries of life. It means that, suppose what I'm talking about is, people don't plan for luxuries. People don't plan for a BMW. They just see their neighbor or their friend buying it and they go ahead with it. Take a loan for a BMW. Why do you take a loan for a luxury, first of all? And ask your own self, are you happy after driving that luxury car? Will you be happy, or will it be of some use to you, or will it add value? So, I recently, due to this corona, I was reading a book again. And that book really said that if a luxury car is adding value to your business, or is adding more business to you, then it's worth it. And people actually buying luxury cars, those people who are super rich, they're buying luxury cars, they're actually buying for a purpose. Because they have that kind of businesses, they have that kind of work schedules where they need those kind of luxury. Why will a person who's just traveling from Surat to Sachin, a person like me, need a BMW, whereas I can travel it through a WagonR also, or an Alto also? Right? So luxuries have to be defined first, and is it necessary for you? That has to be identified. And I am not saying that we don't have to buy luxuries. Even I like buying luxuries. We need to pamper ourselves. We've come here to live, and being frugal is not you cannot avoid yourself from living. You have to plan for it. If you have it in your own portfolio, you mentioned it to your financial advisor, or you have a plan prepared for buying a luxury, it's very good. Taking a loan for a luxury is wrong. Taking a loan.
Got your point. Like you're talking about prioritizing your list of luxuries. Maybe you need to prioritize it. Like what is needed urgently or important.
That's right. Very true.
We need to understand. I think that makes us more wiser in our planning.
True, ma'am. That's all.
I think Amar is here. He might be audible now.
Yeah, there is a question from Facebook Live by Mokshada Jhala. She is asking, a financial advisor can help you with more than just explaining complicated investment terms and prepare your portfolio. But how do you develop your own understanding towards managing your own finance? What are the key points which everyone should keep in mind?
So is it about managing my own finance, my portfolio? I have to disclose it?
No, as in how should a student get the understanding of how they should manage their own portfolio?
See, I gave a very practical presentation how they should start with. So I said in the presentation, you first of all, after this whole webinar, ask your own self, do you have enough emergency fund to fulfill your pocket money for 12 months? next 12 months, if your father is not giving you your pocket money, you do have enough funds for that. Have you saved it from your own pocket money? So that's one thing you can do. Then if you have it, it's really good if you have it. I don't know, many students might not be having it, right? And later on, you should start your own life, your own portfolio with necessities of life and stating all priorities. So if a student, I'd say being a student, you are very lucky that you are seeing and facing all these times. This is a black swan event which we are facing right now. It happened 100 years back. So by these kind of events, when I was a student, I saw subprime crisis when I was a student, right? So in these kind of events, what you learn is, when you come out in the industry, you start building your portfolio. You give time to your portfolio. Usually you fall prey to the rat race of earning money, and you forget that money is going to earn back to you. That money will work hard and it'll make more money and it will give it back to you. We forget that in the race of earning more money. So instead of running to earn more money, understand finances, understand money, start loving money, and try to keep it more with you and not with others.
Yuvraj, I have a very curious question. As you are financial advisor to multiple of your clients, dozens of your clients, I would like to know, who is your financial advisor?
My financial advisor, I'll give you an answer and you'll start laughing out. So my financial advisor was my child who never came, was not there actually, and he recently came into my life. So I was planning it, keeping in view that, okay, this guy, if he comes up and he sees that my portfolio, he'd say, Dad, you've done a blunder out of yourself. So I always keep him in mind, and I see that I don't make a blunder out of it. Else, I used to have a financial advisor. So I really I rely on 2-3 people regarding finances. I rely on my wife, and everyone have to be in that. It has to be in that way. You have to ask your life partner that okay, this is how I'm managing my finances. So I really rely on my wife. I rely on my mother. She gives me good advices, and I really I don't know how many women are there on this webinar, but they are the best person to manage finances. Even if you don't have a financial advisor, go and ask your mom or your wife. They'll give you the best advice on finances.
Thanks for validating our wiseness and our intelligence, specifically in financial front. My another very important question is, I know many students are listening to you. There are many students who are planning to come up with startup and entrepreneurial activities, specifically post-lockdown. This is what the country is promoting, and government has also, budgeted it in such a way so that most of the youngsters should enter into entrepreneurship and, startup. So,
Right.
What is your suggestion to those entrepreneurs or startup founders in terms of their financial portfolio? How they have to define it in the initial level of their project, because they are very new. Let's assume that they don't have any background of, a big, huge financial support and all. So when they're starting with zero or scratch, so as a financial advisor, how will you make their portfolio effective so that they can self-sustainable for another 2-3 years, even if they are not getting any funding from anywhere?
Are we talking about their individual finance or the finance of their companies?
Their company.
Companies. Okay. So this is regarding the company. Then that's again a different topic. What happens here when you are entering into a startup? What happens is the first year or the first 6 months are all too good, and they are like you enjoy it a lot, and we don't talk about expenses, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about revenues. And mostly these days in India, what I'm seeing in India is startups are not focusing on revenue model, they are focusing on business model. Business model is a separate thing, revenue model is a separate thing. There are many startups which I cannot name it, but you might be aware of. They have a good business model, but they are not making revenue. And SoftBank is behind them. The biggest investor is SoftBank, and they are running behind them to shut down their operations and de-staff. So, whenever you plan a startup, do not plan a startup to sell it to someone. This is the mentality in the general youngsters or the general entrepreneurs currently, and that's why we don't have more money in the startup ecosystem in India as we have it in US or in other parts of the world. Here, if I want to come up with a startup, I have to work very hard. I have to join some boot camp and do some marketing, do some presentation. Then I get funding. Whereas in other part of the world, it's very easy. You get it in your next door. People are available. They are ready to invest in startups, very small startups, which are not going to go online, which are not going to expand. Such startups get money in other countries, which you don't get it over here. So what happens is, I would suggest, first of all, focus on business model and not on revenue model. And not on business model. You are sure that you are going to make revenue out of the startup. Then when you start your business, focus on longevity. People don't talk long term. When they have a startup, they say, "Acha, chal gaya to theek hai, nahi to koi baat nahi, chhod de." No, you plan it. You have a lot of Excel, and there are a lot of things available, a lot of tools available right now. So they could plan it, and they could jot it down point by point, and they could plan that startup in a way that would help them sustain. There are startups in country which are not public. They didn't sell a single stake to anyone. There is a broking house which we very well know, which is running, and they don't have any investors into it. They don't want any investors, because that guy started that company to run that company and not to sell that company. So this is one mindset wherein the whole finances go for a toss, because they are not concerned at all regarding revenues. So what they do is, whatever funding they get, they use it up. They do a lot of marketing, they do a lot of advertisements, but then there is no revenue in the end.
Any other question?
Yeah, there is another question which is for Mr. Amar Bora. During this bearish market, mainly the equity market, it is like inviting us to buy shares at...
Today, this connectivity problem day. Let me just...
Can I take this question, ma'am?
Yeah, please go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is some issue. Maybe we'll take up that question later. And there's one question for Mr. Yuvraj. It says, how to commence allocating funds initially? As a master student, we don't have enough financial base.
Okay. Ma'am, can you please repeat it? Okay, everyone can't afford a financial advisor. Ma'am, can you again repeat this question? I cannot see this question here.
Yeah, the question is, everyone can't afford financial advisor as they are expensive, to be frank, and that's worth it also. But how to commence allocating fund initially? As a master student, we don't have enough financial base.
Okay. See, first of all, financial advisors are not expensive. Doctors are not expensive. No one is expensive. If you really want to march on the road to success, you need to have an advisor at every point. You need to have mentors. So, what I would start with is, see, first of all, we have an issue in this consulting space. We don't have family doctors. These days, there are very less people who actually have family doctors. When we fill up forms for medical claim of our clients, we ask them any family doctors. They say no. Till date, we didn't fall ill, so we never needed a doctor. But you should have a family doctor. You should have a family surgeon. You should have a family electrician and all those. Every agency, you should have a person who is there. having a financial advisor is okay. We'll put that topic aside. That okay, you cannot afford it. When you start building your own financial portfolio, what you actually should start up with is the necessities. Suppose you currently your priority is to have a job and to have a house of your own. If you're a guy and you want to purchase your own house, then you prioritize that from now. You start saving it from now. What we do is we first have priorities to buy an expensive mobile phone, an expensive bike, an expensive car, and some expensive clothes and some watches, and then we come up with actual necessities of life which are going to hit hard onto us. I tell you, many people, they purchase a house when they have already crossed their early stage of life, and they are in a trap of EMIs for their whole life for that single house. So first lesson to be learned, if you want to really deal with your finances, avoid the trap of having EMIs. If you can do that, you are successful. You don't need anyone. If you actually have avoided taking loans, then if you are debt free, then I guess you have completed, I guess 30% of your work is done. Then remaining 70% is all your hard work. So this is one suggestion I can give. Otherwise, your question needs to be answered in a very, very elaborate manner, and we need to sit with a pen and paper. So this is what I can suggest right now. Yeah, thank you.
We'll just get Mr. Amar Vora on the line so that the next question can be taken up. Just a minute.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear your voice.
I suppose my video is disabled, but if I'm audible, I can go ahead and answer the question.
Yeah.
I was always there on. Hello. Yeah. I suppose there was some technical error. I was always there on this, but I was not able to just talk. So the question was on selecting stocks, right?
Yes, qualitative stocks during this time.
Yeah, so it's a simple, like, see, I'm into this industry since 2005. I understand investment is a very simple subject, but complex if you allow it to get complicated. Right now, if you say, if you want to invest, so which sector will you invest, right? So if I take example of tourism, so I'm sure for next 1 or 2 years, people are not going to travel. People are not going to do any international trip. Even they will try to avoid doing domestic trip. So tourism is going to get impacted for another 1 or 2 years. But if you ask me about telecom, so definitely right now, even this what we are doing is through telecom data, right? So telecom, pharma, these are the sectors which will be positively impacted. So you need to understand which sectors will get positively impacted in this lockdown period and who will be negative. Say if you talk about consumption, so definitely once this lockdown is open, the consumption sector will again start moving up. So you need to have a top-down approach. You need to identify sectors. You need to identify leaders, good market leaders in that stock with a good strong balance sheet, and then invest in those kind of stock. Stock specific, I'm not allowed to share in this forum, so I won't talk about stock specific, but I have clearly mentioned your approach. It has to be top-down. First, identify the sector. As I told you, tourism, avoid, but then telecom is definitely must invest. Pharma is a definitely must invest sector. NBFCs will get impacted to a certain level, but again, consumption post lockdown will be the sector to watch for to invest. So have a top down approach, select sector, select market leader amongst them, and invest in good businesses. Invest where the management is strong, management is good, and management is ethical. Most important thing in India right now is ethical management. So everything, Yes Bank, and I do not want it to name, but it's naturally it came out of my mouth. But then there are certain companies where on balance sheet, on everything, you will find it very good and very attractive. But then still, there's a question mark on ethics of management. So invest in good quality management also. That will be my answer for it.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
So we are done with the question answer session. Thank you, Yuvraj and Amarji, for such a delightful session, such an informative session. And now I'd like to hand over the session to Dr. Monica Suri for her closing remarks.
First of all, I would like to convey that I think I am a better, wiser person now after attending your session. Got more clarity on my financial health, that where I can sustain or up to what level I can sustain, and where I have to do the cost cutting and where I have to make the wiser investments. Because you have given a very good trip to a financial clinic in last 1.5 hours to us. And you have shown us operation theater and equipments and whatnot during this particular journey, which is actually a very good sensitization exercise. You know, there's a basic mentality of every human being. Until we'll not feel that fear or anxiety or insecurities, we may not be, we may not be proactive to take any further actions or decisions, because we believe in when the things will come or the problem will reach, then only I'll be able to solve it. Because we at times become little overconfident, and you people talked very effectively about the emergency budgets that we have to keep. So as a service class, I heard from my friends and colleagues and my mentors in the past that almost 3 months of salary should always be there as a security, financial security for you. But after listening to you, I think we need to increase the number of months from 3 to 1 year, keeping in mind COVID-19 kind of situations which may come in future also. But I'm sure that this has given a wonderful insight to everyone, all the participants who are listening to you. And it's good to listen to young people like you and talking about the financial planning, because a doctor may be young also, maybe, right? It's not always that you need an experienced and a very old doctor to guide you. And I think young professionals like you, experienced professionals like you, who are dealing with so many business problems, day-to-day business problems, and dealing with thousands of mindsets as a financial advisor, that makes you more experienced. I'm sure in future also we'll invite you once after lockdown. I'll request Dr. Rohini to invite you in campus so that we can spend one day workshop on this particular topic, which is actually the need of hour, specifically post COVID-19, when we'll be completely out of funds or maybe having very little funds with us. So I think that will be appropriate time. So on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, on behalf of our Dean, and on behalf of my team of School of Business, and specifically I'm thankful to Dr. Rohini for hosting such kind of webinar, which is of everyone's interest. I don't see any person who may not have interest in this particular webinar, because this is too close to the realities and our day-to-day life. So with this, I thank you for your presence, and we'll surely meet in future. And I'm sure you also got some insight about the client's problem, like me, as I shared that, I'm a tough person, not mentally prepared to get. So this is a good platform for you also to explore the mindset of the clients and people like us. So with this, once again, I thank you, and it's over to you, Rohini ji. And thank you so much to you, Rohini ji, for this wonderful webinar. I learned a lot, and I've made almost 5 pages notes for me, which I'm going to compile and summarize later on. It's over to you, Rohini ji.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for your remarks. I'm sure it has been an enlightening session for everyone. I'm sure everyone has got at least 1 or 2 takeaways from this session. And like ma'am said, everyone requires this kind of an advice every now and then. So thank you, Mr. Amar Vora and Mr. Yuvraj Solanki, for sparing your valuable time. In spite of the market, Mr. Vora was there with us during the closing time. Thank you so much, and thank you, Yuvraj. You all have really made it very interactive and very practical session. Hope to see you in our campus very soon. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Bye.